Today I'm going to talk about the Google Workspace for students and faculty and administrators, but it's just going to be an overview of the Google Workspace. It used to be called the G Suite for Education, the Google Suite for Education. And over the last couple of years, and especially last year, Google has spent a lot of time rebranding and updating what they now call the Google Workspace. And when I came aboard, WISR realized that it was going into distance education and selected Google as their technology platform. I do want to recognize that Berkeley sits on the territory of the Wichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Shoshone-Ohlone, the successors of the historic and sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land continues to be of great importance to the Ohlone people. I'm in Whittier, California, and respectfully acknowledge the original caretakers of this land, the Tongva people, and all their ancestors. I also recognize this land, now known as Los Angeles County, is home to many indigenous peoples. That's something I picked up in Canada, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have a toque, but I have a tam, so, you know.
I like it. Yeah. It works.
So the Google Workspace is many things, and that leads to confusion, I've discovered. I've been working with it for about a decade now, working with students and Google, and there's a lot. There's no doubt about that. So here's their new rebranding. The top logos, of which there's much discussion amongst designers about how terrible they are. From the left to right is Gmail, Calendar, Google Drive, which is the storage system, and the camera-looking thing is Google Meet. And then below are the Office apps, or the Office suite, which you can compare to Microsoft Office or LibreOffice, if you like free and open source software. And at the bottom, the logos are Google Docs, Google Sheets, which are spreadsheets, Slides, which we're looking at now. I think Google Sites, the purple one is Google Forms, and the little light bulb is Google Tasks. And so I'll go over all those today, just to help you find them and then learn more about them. So everything I know about Google, almost everything I know about Google, has come from Google. They want you to use their products. They're free to use. WISR is enrolled, of course, and we have a more robust suite, especially for administrators, but they're all the same products that you can use for free with a Gmail account. Originally it was called G Suite Training. You can see all they did was change one word in the URL, and both URLs will be in the same place. And there's an almost infinite amount of training material available. So I always suggest that when you run into a roadblock or there's something you want to learn more about, Google it. It's the fastest way, especially to learn about Google. It's amazing how much material is there. It really is. And that's true for users, admins, faculty, if you want to look at the education components. It's just an amazing assortment of stuff. So here's the landing page for Workspace Training. And the top half, it'll just take you right through basically this presentation, all automated, of course, and shorter than this presentation. And then at the bottom, it says learn by product. So again, if you're, have a challenge or want to learn more about any particular product that was in that slide 3 slides ago, there's the links right there. You click on the logo or emblem, and it takes you right to that section of the training. So I always recommend people should come here first. You're always free to contact me, but I may not answer my phone right that minute, or it might take a couple hours to respond to your email. So this is really the way to go. So today I've decided to start with this picture that I made that I've been using to just disaggregate, one of my favorite academic words, what we're doing here. And right now, we are all using all 5 levels of this diagram. So just quickly, I'm going to start at the bottom. The red line is your computer and my computer. And it's the hardware that we're using, the screens, the cameras, the mouse, the microphone, the keyboard, all of that, including your router, you know, all your digital technologies, my speakers. I mean, the list is long, all the stuff that's hooked to this computer, and it's all hardware. And it has software attached to it, but it's the physical hardware. And then that doesn't do us any good unless we can talk to it. And so that's the yellow level, and that's the operating system. Most of us at WISR use Windows, but there's a significant subsection of people that use Macintosh. Welcome. We just started the presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. And so just to recap, I just started by saying the red row below is our hardware that we're all using right now to communicate. And the yellow row is the operating system and the software that lets us interact with all this stuff. Like, it can all talk to each other at the lower level, but for us to talk to it, we need an interface. And that's the operating system. And then all the little programs, they're called drivers. I don't know why, they've always been called that. But these are tiny little programs that tell your camera what to do and tell your speakers and, you know, all these different things. There's a little program for each one, and those are called drivers. And you'll see sometimes a driver will break on your computer and something will stop. And if you restart your computer, usually it reloads the driver and you're back in business. That's why you always turn off your computer first to see if it'll fix itself. It's that little program, usually. And then the next level is when we're online. The green level in the center is we all came here using a browser. We all, you know, either opened our calendar or our email and clicked on a link, and that link took us to Zoom. And whether you have the Zoom application installed on your computer or not, you're here. So you don't have to have the Zoom application, but it can make things simpler. And but you came here through a browser, however you got here. And that includes your phone. It's the same basic stack of technology. Also are all the programs on your computer. You know, all your Office 365s and your image editing software and, you know, whatever, all those programs that you have on your computer. Those are all running on top of the operating system, and they interact. So you use those to interact with your computer as well, but it's another layer. And that's where your files are stored on top of your operating system, you know, and all the programs you have. And then the blue level is the internet. And that's where Zoom is. Zoom's on the internet. And so we're communicating using the internet. But you can see we're riding on top of all this other technology. And in the case of Google, we have something called Drive. I'll talk about that more. And that's our storage. That's where all of our documents and images and videos are stored. And they can be stored locally, but if they're in Drive, they're not stored locally. They're stored what's called the cloud. Another metaphor that people find confusing. What the cloud is somebody else's computer. That's all it is. You have a computer, you have stuff on your computer. If you put it in the cloud, it's somewhere else on a computer. That's all the cloud is. And that's all your Google apps and your storage and all your Google files are all there in the cloud. And then the top level, we're also using Zoom software as a service. So we're streaming over Zoom. And it's at the highest level. We're all interconnected through the internet using that app for this presentation. And that's where your Google apps ride when you're using them online. You can also use them locally at the level below, and we'll go more into that. But I just wanted to start here because I really think that thinking this way, breaking it into these pieces is so helpful, especially when you run into challenges. Because the first thing you have to ask yourself is, where am I? Where's my challenge? If my screen's black, I know that I have a hardware problem, right? It just starts right there. And if you're having trouble connecting or something, you look at your internet connection first. So you just have to first find your standpoint, if you like academic talk, find where you are, and then it'll be a lot faster to get to the solution. So I started there for a reason. People have a lot of trouble starting at WISR. And it all starts with, you get an email that says, welcome to WISR. WISR is a Google Workspace institution, and you now have access to all this good stuff, but you have to sign in. And for a while, we were unfortunately using the language of set up your account, which people found confusing, so they tried to create accounts. And the thing is we create the account. When you come to WISR, we create an account for you that has all this good stuff, and all you have to do is sign in. So and we recommend you use Chrome browser, not because it's better, not because we get paid, but because it's integrated with Google. You can use any browser you like, but you'll find it simpler, mostly, and sometimes more difficult, using the Chrome browser. So on the left of the slide, if you don't use Google, that's what you'll see when you go to sign in. And at the bottom, I put the URL. There's another confusion that I'm hoping to clear up today. Forevermore going forward, I want us to all look at this a little differently. But if you want to sign in, you can sign in anywhere. This is another confusing part. You can just go right to YouTube and sign in, and you're signed in. But then you don't know, then you're stuck in YouTube, and if you don't know how it works, you don't know how to get to your Gmail. So to me, the best way now is to go to accounts.google.com. And that takes you to your account, which has everything. And so on the left side, if you don't use Google, that's what you'll see if you go to accounts.google.com. And you just have to remember that your WISR email is your first name dot last name at wisr.edu. On the right side is what I see, and that's only a few of my Google accounts. So that causes confusion, because then people are like, well, there's all these other accounts, but it's not my account that I want, my WISR account. So you'll see at the bottom, there's two boxes or toggles. The first one is use another account. So that's where you add a different Google account. So if you click that, it takes you back to the page on the left, basically, and then you sign in for the first time, because that's what you're doing when you come to WISR. You're signing into your WISR account for the first time. And then if there's some accounts on there that you don't like, if you're a user and you have a lot of accounts, you can also remove an account. All that does is take it off of this view, this panel. It doesn't do anything to the account. It just removes it from this view. So this way you can keep your top 2 or 3 accounts that always come up, and you can select WISR and you're off. And now I've switched. So the tab I'm in is in my WISR account, which is what I'm going to be working in now. Mm-hmm. Up above, that's my browser navigation, one of my browser navigation bars. And you can turn, there's multiple ones, you can turn them on and off. We're not going to talk about browsers, that's a whole other hour. But what that is, when I click on that, now you can see the little pop-up. Mark Corbett. So that's my personal account. And that means my browser, I'm signed into my browser. And the reason you do that is to sync it. So that whatever I do here, all the searches I'm gonna do in the next few minutes are saved by the browser. And later I can open my phone, go to my Chrome browser on my phone, and all those searches will be on my phone because the browsers are synced together. And that is some confusion, the two, because I'm always talking about the circle in the upper right-hand corner. From this point forward, I'm only talking about the lower circle, the one in the tab. the WISR apps that we're going to look at using the browser. So this is not a this doesn't come up if you use other browsers. Because even if you're syncing that browser, like I use Firefox a lot, it syncs, but it doesn't get confused with Google. So if you're using Chrome and this, it does cause confusion. But you can sign in and out, you can pause. Sync is on. If I click on that, turn it off, but I won't. Okay, back to the webinar. Where was I? Oh yes, so once you're signed in to your Google account, they put this link pretty much everywhere. You can go straight to Gmail, which is what most people want to do. And then I suggest that you bookmark them so that you can go right there. And once you're signed in the first time, if you save the password, your browser, whichever browser you use, will just automatically sign you in. So by clicking on that link, it'll take me right to my Gmail. But before we do that, there's the 9 dots. If there's 3 dots, they call it a hamburger. I've never decided what they should call the 9 dots. But that's your app launcher, or that's where all your apps are. And you can move these around. So whatever you use the most of, you can put up at the top. But what I want you to see here is, here's that account page that we want to look at. So amongst all of these apps, which we've already seen these logos before, there's this one with the picture. And of course you have to upload a picture. Otherwise, it's a plain color with your initials, I should say. All right, now I'm in my WISR Google account. And from here, I just wanted to quickly show you on the left side, this is the home page. They're promoting transferring stuff. So this is for new people. You can like transfer all your Office 365 stuff in and all that. Then there's the privacy and personalization. And now Google is on the security bandwagon, so it's always telling you about your passwords. On the left, here's my personal info. This is where you can upload a picture. You can change your name. You can fill out this stuff. You definitely want to put a secondary email address in here as a recovery address. So if anything happens to your WISR account, you can get back in using your secondary address. So that's important. And phones are often used for verification. So it's a good idea to put your phone number in. But then you have to, these are all privacy issues. You have to decide these each step of the way what you want to do. But having the phone number is when you get locked out of your account, which will happen. You forget your password, you try it too many times, whatever.
Mark?
Then it's the phone number that'll help you get back in. Yes, David?
What information here does Google share with other parties?
Good question.
I know it's always moving around with Google.
It's a moving target, but in the Google Workspace for Education, which is what we're in, they say they don't share this information, period.
They don't share personal information of any kind?
Correct. And they don't track search use and those types of things in the professional workspaces.
Question. What, Ms. Karen, what tells me that this is the Google Education? How do I tell it apart from like my personal one or something?
It's your account. In this case, I do it by picture. So
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's what I did.
Yeah. So there's nothing there's nothing visually that brands it as Workspace for Education. Okay. As they look exactly.
It just knows our email.
It's the email. It's the account you're in. In this WISR, you can see Mark Wilson at wisr.edu. Okay. That account is inside of a Workspace for Education account. And so it follows those rules, but there's no visual indication.
Thank you.
So I still operate under that overarching. Google says they don't collect information from business or education accounts. I don't trust Google any more than I trust my bank. So, you know, but that's what they say, David. Where if you're in a free Google account, they do keep some of this information. The way, well, I don't need to tell David this, but for everybody else, they claim they don't keep personal information. They claim that they only keep anonymized information, but that's a whole other discussion. So, but here is where you decide on your settings. So that leads me to the next tab, privacy, data and privacy. And here are those settings where you can tell Google what you don't want shared. Things you've done and places you've been. So this is your search history, which I leave on because it's convenient. But if you're concerned that Google might be sharing this, even though they say they're not, then you can turn that off. Like I turn off my web and app activity. I don't need the history of that. But location history I've left on. That just makes it easier to work with Maris. But a lot of people turn that on. I turn that off on my phone, but I leave it on my desktop because they know where I am. My desktop doesn't move around. And then YouTube history, I do leave that on. But you educators, especially, you have to be careful of that because after you show a YouTube video, YouTube automatically starts showing, the AI starts showing things you might be interested based on your previous searches. So you might want to keep an eye on it. Ad settings, ad personalization, I have that on. Sometimes I turn it off. It looks like it's come back on. That's the other thing. Google will go through and reset your settings sometimes. They call it being helpful. Personal results in search. But again, this is all inside of Google Workspace, which they say they're not collecting this information. They're just saving it for you in your browser to be helpful. So,
Mark, it says content from Drive, Gmail, and Photos is never used for any ad purposes. I'm assuming that they've limited it to those three, and that means that they're using it for others?
I guess that's possible. But all the apps are in Drive. Everything saved is in Drive. So anything you create falls under Drive.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So, yeah, we should have that conversation, but not today. Then security, they're not talking about their security. They're talking about yours. This is your account, the security on your account. And here's where you can add second factor verification, which means every time you try to sign in, it sends a text to your phone, unless you have one of those security keys, which somebody gave me at a conference, so I have one. So instead of like texting my phone, I have to go over and touch the key on my computer to tell it's me. Here's your devices. You can see that I'm signed in on my desktop and my phone is signed in, which is right here. Yeah, Marilyn.
Went in there recently because we realized that it was saving our passwords, and we didn't want that. So I had to go in and delete a whole slew of passwords. So just not just.
Yeah, that's one of the features include. That's in the browser.
Okay, I thought it was.
Yeah, it's actually the browser that saves your passwords. And yeah, you have to, if you don't want them, if you don't want to do that.
Old accounts and.
Yeah. So that to get there, you go passwords.google.com, and that will take you to the password, whatever it is, vault. But that's in the browser. Okay, so here's where your security settings are under the security tab. I think we need to speed this up a little. And then below that is people and sharing, and that refers to your contacts, which we'll get to in a minute. Google automatically, if you get an email, it automatically creates contact for you. So you can turn that on. You can block users, if you need to block somebody. You can do it right from in your Gmail, but if you want to see I don't block people, so But if I had a list of blocked people, it would show up right here. And then I could come back and unblock them. and change my mind. Then payments and subscriptions. Google has its own payment service. You put it on your phone, use it at Starbucks, just like Apple, you know, all of that. You can purchase through Google. Sometimes I buy ebooks through Google. Sometimes their prices are better than Amazon. It's worth checking. And then here's an important thing is account storage. Google Workspace professional accounts, in our case, Google Workspace for Education, comes with unlimited storage. And this is an important thing to remember, especially if you have multiple accounts. If you have a personal account and you start running out of space, move your stuff into your WISR account, because WISR has unlimited. Everybody at WISR has what they, you know, unlimited is a term that is undefined, but they say unlimited. And so far, I've never bumped into any limits, but then I don't store a bunch of videos. So if you move your entire movie collection into Drive, you might get a message, but I don't know. But here I've only used 14 gigs. Also in my personal account, because I don't delete emails, because I like to search through them and find stuff from 10, 12, 14 years ago. I don't delete any emails. And so that bumped me up against the limit. So I pay $1.99 a month for 100 gigs. So that's under this payment page, if I decide to change that. And then this goes back and forth. There's this reservations thing. For a while, Google was automatically putting any reservations on your calendar. Then it wasn't. I think it is again, but since I haven't gone anywhere for a couple of years, I'm not sure.
It is.
It is? Okay. So you can turn that on and off. I found it very helpful when I was traveling. But again, so I want to start here. So when you get that welcome to WISR email, what it's telling you is you have a Google account. Now, we've been referring to it as Gmail and taking people in that way, and confusion has resulted for years. So going forward, I'm hoping that this is a more useful and way more accurate, actually, way to tell you that you have a Google account through your WISR email. So back to the 9 dots. So this is all the good stuff that you have inside of the Google Workspace, hopefully under that protection of not sharing your personal data, which I'll have to look into a bit more, obviously. And so I've reordered this. Like I said, you drag these and drop them. So I've reordered these. So I think my Gmail, my Drive, and my Maps are the most important. That's what I use the most. So I put those on top. Then there's photos, calendar, docs, sheet slides. And then for us administrators, there's this hexagon called admin. Again, we won't go into it, but that takes us behind the scenes into the workspace settings. That's where we create that account for you and create the email that welcomes you to WISR that provides all this stuff, administration. And then there's an almost infinite number of other applications, and you can add third-party applications. So that you can do a lot. I've recently been playing with Google Podcasts. So all the stuff that people put on Apple or iTunes and Spotify gets picked up by Google. It's the same audio file, but now they have this little logo. And so since I have a Google phone, I use that now. Okay, so that's our Google account. Now I want to, where's my Gmail? Oh, right. The Gmail interface, so the email interface has changed quite a bit in the last year. So I just quickly want to show you where things are, in case you haven't found them already.
I like this view. How'd you do that?
In my settings.
Oh,
Gonna
okay.
get there. Yeah, it's a little less cluttered. But first I want to do the tour here. So there are 2 navigation panels here. If you click on the left-hand panel, it opens all the way. And these are presets at the top here. These are all presets from, well, the first few are presets from Google, and then you can add others. So don't forget to check your spam once in a while. Public service announcement. Okay, actually you only have to hover, you don't have to click. And then below those is the chat. So if you're in your email, you read an email from somebody, especially at WISR, just let's keep it to just WISR, makes it simpler. You can talk to people outside of WISR if you already have their address or phone number. But let's just say you're WISR. You're reading a WISR email and you're like, what? I don't get this. You can click on chat. It knows what email you're in, and it opens a chat for you to send that person a text to say, I don't understand this sentence or whatever. Right there, bang. So they call it productivity. I don't know if it helps, but they say it does.
So,
Then-
so let me just be clear, Mark. You're saying that these parties, when they're on their Gmail account, can see that you're available to chat with, correct?
They will get a chat message from you.
That you are,
Brian just sent me a message.
Ryan just sent you one.
You get the message. Yeah, no, it's not a notification, it's the message. Yeah, again, because we're in WISR, because we signed into our WISR accounts, when you do that, it goes straight to the person, and it's a pop-up. Well, you can see the pop-up on my screen, right? Or sometimes Zoom doesn't show pop-ups.
I wonder if I could point out, I'm getting such a great deal more out of your presentation because I've got another computer open here. So I'm clicking everything you're clicking, so it stamps in the learning. Otherwise, it's just, you forget after 10 minutes, at least I do.
I know, you're right, you're right.
So this is very
and,
helpful.
You know, thank you for that. Going forward, I will recommend, if people can, again, this is another level of privilege, but if you can have a second device, yes, you're definitely going to learn more by being able to follow along. Anyway, so thank you, Brian. I'm going to accept, so you can see at the bottom, I can ignore it or accept it. I'm going to accept it, but I'm not going to respond. I'm going to close. So this is the big change last year, is these instant communications from inside of Gmail to keep it. So yeah, we're coming up on the first hour, so I really want to push this ahead so that we have time for discussion and troubleshooting. Below that is spaces. We have yet to really use spaces at WISR, but this is where you set up your group chats, your group meets. So here, it's a chat, but it's a chat for groups. So you can create a space and you can hold that space. So if you wanted to have, a weekly chat meeting, instead of using Slack or Discord, you can do it right here from your email. You can get your notification from your calendar, click on this, go directly in and have your meeting without leaving your email. And then below
Is that the Google Meet?
Yes, and below
Okay.
that is Google Meet. So right here, I can start a new meeting from within my Gmail. So again, you're reading an email like, I don't really get this. And again, especially if it's WISR, because I know those contacts are in your contact. So if you're trying to talk to somebody who's not in your contacts, you might have to add them. But Google adds all contacts immediately. So it's only an issue sometimes. But certainly with WISR, you can be reading an email, you can click on Meet, it will open a new tab. And then of course it brings up that issue. One of the reasons we use Zoom is Google Meet has this one limitation that's hard to learn to work around, is that it's in a tab. So if you want to look at one tab and you want to have a meet in another tab, you have to go back and forth. Where on Zoom, the Zoom is an application on my computer. So here again, those levels. Meet is software as service at the highest level. You're using a tab in your browser to communicate. So if you don't have two screens, or if you don't shrink it to half a screen, then it covers your whole screen and you can't talk about that email that you want to talk about. So what you have to do is open another browser, put it to half the screen for your Meet, and then the other half the screen for your email that you want to talk about. This is something, a limitation of Meet. But on the other hand, Meet is free. You can use it right out of your email. And so it has a lot of strengths, but there's that one big weakness that you have to shift around between tabs. I don't want to go into that too much. Okay, but you can start a Meet right there, and you can.
So Mark, just a quick question. So other than that particular difference in functionality, when would we want to use Meet rather than Zoom?
Well, if you don't have a Zoom account, and if you want to have a longer meeting, then Zoom's free service if you don't have access to WISR Zoom account. And if you're reading an email and you just want to talk to somebody for a minute right now, rather than opening, well, sending, setting up a Zoom meeting, sending the invitation, waiting for them to respond, you can just click on Meet, see if they're available. If they are, say what you need to say, and you're done. That's what it's for. It's not, scheduling meetings is a different thing, but quick video chat is what this is for.
Thank you.
I just want to, can I say something? I want to make a plug for Google Meet because with your WISR account, you have unlimited time. You could have I have a chat with my family and I don't have to pay for Zoom.
Yeah.
My sister has it, but I'm doing this one. And we can have multiple people in a chat. So a regular chat, I'm using my Google account. We're not filling up the WISR Zoom, so, and also if someone's hard of hearing, they can read, you can turn on the transcriber and they can read what's being said. So, or they're deaf. So that, anyway, that's just.
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. Yeah, there are a lot of places where it's, what you would want to use. I use it all the time. Well, maybe not all the time.
I use it a lot.
Yeah, I use it a lot, let's say that. But people are now more used to Zoom. But if you don't have a commercial account, there's the time limitation, which I think they put back on. They took it off for a year, but now it's back. So there's a lot of reasons. But the reason this is here is for this ease of use. That's the point here. It's just bang. You see if the person's available, say what you got to say, and you're done. Setting up meetings is really a different process, especially if you want a group meeting and invites and figure out the time. Okay, so that's the left-hand panel. And then, of course, I didn't point out the compose button at the top. They keep changing the logo on it. It drives me crazy. Used to be a plus sign. Now it's a pencil. I don't, apparently they've tested this worldwide and the pencil is better than the plus sign. I don't know. Anyway, that's where you write an email. So that's the same on your phone. Okay, so on the right side, there's another panel I use all the time. So this is the one, hovering doesn't do it. Down at the bottom, there's a tiny little arrow that says hide the side panel. And then, or leave the side panel. Okay, so, okay. So this one you have to open what you want. So the thing I use most is here's a link to your calendar. So without going to my calendar, I'm in my email, somebody says, what are you doing on Tuesday? I click that, comes up, you can change the view. I use the day view. You can change it to the week view or the month view, I believe. And here you can see we're in this webinar that's on my calendar and it shows right here. Now, if I need to change this, I have to go to my calendar. Well, I think I can edit it from here, but, and you can add things from here, but without all the features. It's just part of the features. But again, you're in your email, somebody asks a question, you can get the answer right here without going to a new tab and opening your calendar, but you can do that too. And you can go through, like I said, I have my view set to today. There's always the 3 dots, what some people call hamburgers. There's 3 dots up here, and that gives the view options. So I could actually check other calendars. Again, I have multiple accounts, so it will take me to the account I'm signed into, but here it gives me the option to go to a different account. Probably have to sign in. And schedule. That's it. Other people put things on your calendar, I believe. And then up here is the open in the new tab thing. So again, I can go without opening a tab and searching for calendars, or without going to the app, the 9 dots, and opening the calendar that way. Here's another way to open my calendar. It says open in a new tab. If it clicks that, it's going to take me someplace else. So I'm not going to do that. And then there's the close, the X. So I'll close that. Okay. Well, that's the calendar. And again, it's the integrated productivity feature of calendar. It's not your calendar, right? That's a different place. Okay, so that's the calendar. I think these are set. I don't remember moving these. Let's see, can I move it? No, okay. So this is just the way it's presented to you. So the yellow logo with the light bulb is notes, keep. They call it keep. It's a note-taking app. And I use it all the time. And again, if you're in an email and you open keep, it attaches the email to the note, or attaches the note to the email, however you want to look at it, which is a nice feature. So you can make notes. You can put images. This is an image on there. I think you can even drag videos in here. So this is just a quick note-taking app, but it also has its own page. I can go to my Keep page and see all of my notes, but here it just shows the top notes. And again, here they've kept the plus sign to open a new note. And again, they're connected. If an email is open, it's connected to that email. And so you can search either your email or you can search your notes to go back and find these things. Built into this note-taking app, just like some of the original text editors from the good old days of mainframes, you can make lists. So this app does two things, just like the old text editors did. You can keep text or you can keep lists. What are lists? Lists are text that's ordered. And in this case, you can create lists like webinar, and you can check things off. We're doing the webinar. So again, another productivity feature. And then again, if you go to your Keep page, you can find all your lists and you can do what you want, clear them, whatever you want to do. Okay. So lists and notes are inside of Keep, which is under the little yellow logo right in your email. And what is this? Tasks. So tasks is like Keep, except it's connected to your calendar. So when you put things in tasks, they have a timestamp. And you say when you want. So this is a project management feature. It's a higher level than old text editor feature. And so you can add tasks. You can assign them to other people. So if you have one of those rooms, they don't call them groups. You have a room full of people and you're deciding on who's going to do what, when they're going to do it. Right here, you can make those task lists and assign them to people and assign due dates, all right here from inside the email. And then you can add other features like Gmails, which is, I think you're still using this right now to send out the emails. So this,
Yeah.
So in Workspace, you have to have permission to add things. So if you find an add-on that you really like, you have to ask an admin to add it, and it'll be added for everything. That's how we have it set up. You can't just willy-nilly add things because it's a security risk. So, but there are many apps out there or add-ons, and if you find one that you need or really like, you just have to contact an admin and have us add it. So, but you're welcome to add more. See, on my personal account, I have Lucid charts, so I can go and make a chart right out of my email again. And if you click on the plus below, it takes you to the Google Workspace Marketplace. I forgot what they call it now. And here are all the things you can add. So here's a Zoom. This helps you schedule from an email, Trello, Slack, all this stuff. but we just haven't added a lot of it. We don't want to bog down anything, so we've kept it simple. But again, if there's something you really need, let us know. Okay, that's the welcome to WISR email. You sign into your account, and now you have WISR. So all you have to do is sign in. So here's the little Google graphic to describe or remind you that those productivity features are built into your email. We should probably post that someplace so people can go see it as a reminder. Email, chat, rooms, and so the rooms feature is the most recently added feature, and that's to keep up with Microsoft Office, we call it groups, I think. Because there's that ongoing, they go back and forth. They've become they used to be very different. Now they've become very similar and competing for institutions. So the next thing I want to talk about is now you've been welcome to WISR, you've gotten into your account, you've checked your email, and now some professor's going to tell you you need to start posting stuff. And you're like, where? So until, well, it's probably been 2 years now, until they started rebranding, it was called Google Plus, and it was the Google social media site, similar to Facebook. But then they rebranded it to the blue squiggle thing.
Current, electric.
Yeah, yeah, oh good, yeah, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, okay. So now it's called Google Current. And we have 2 walls, I think they still call them that. On Current, there's the public wall, which is not public, and there's the private wall.
And there's the Karen wall.
Oh, good. Good, that's right. Anybody can add a wall, and anybody can make groups of it, right? And make group walls. Yeah. So
And off
that's,
the wall.
say it again.
I said, and off the wall,
Off the wall, yeah.
which Karen qualifies for at times.
Thank you. Thank you. Haha.
So that's again another, perhaps we'll have a whole presentation about Google Currents, but just the quick one is that blue squiggle is in your app launcher, the 9 dots, and that will take you right to the WISR Currents. And there's the general wall where you can post anything that you want. You can drop videos, articles, have you seen this? It's for general use. And then there's the what we call the private wall, which is where you put your posts for people to read and comment on. They're both completely private. But you can, if you need to, share the public one with other people, but they have to get a specific invite. We've never encouraged that. So I don't believe there's anybody outside of WISR that's ever been invited to public. But it's possible if we wanted to use it that way. But where Google Plus was a public, a free public app like Facebook, Google Currents is not. Google Currents is only if you have a Workspace account can you see currents. Civilians can't. There's no current for the free Gmail users. So that again, your faculty, if you're new to WISR, which nobody here is, I don't believe, but your faculty member will guide you to where they want things posted and how they want things posted on the wall, and that's where the posts go. And that's where people should go to respond to other people's posts, especially student posts. And then there's been some questions about sites. So I recycled this slide. We're not going to talk about Classroom, but Google does have a kind of a learning management system. Not really, but kind of, that they call Classroom. We don't use that yet. I'm hoping someday we can use it to help navigate. But at this point, each WISR course is on a site. And so everybody has access to Google Sites. That's the little logo. And everybody can create as many Google sites as they want. So I just got scheduled into one NFT group. I'm not sure how many there are, but one person reached out to me. And so I'm going to do a little training on Google Sites, how to set up a website. So it's really quite easy to do.
You mean like set up a website for anything?
Yep.
Oh. Oh, I need to do that.
So I flipped back to my, oh, right, you can't see. New screen.
Oh, start a new site.
Never ran into this. I think this is a new feature because I believe I switched screens before without this. But anyway, so I went to my
Hey,
email.
John was complaining about that the other day, weren't you, John?
I think this is new.
I was just going to quickly, Mark, I was
Yeah.
just going to quickly interject that all of each WISR course is a Google site. So each
Yeah, I
WISR
said
course.
that, but yeah, that's
Oh, I'm
reiterate
sorry,
that.
I didn't hear you say that. But anyway, I just
Yeah.
want to let people know. So if they want to know one way that a Google site can look, it's like a WISR course site. It's like a website. There's a navigation tabs at the top, and you can have sub pages and decide how many pages you want. And I found it quite easy to do. Anyway, I just wanted to put in that plug. I'm sorry if I missed it. You already said that. But,
Yeah,
Mark,
that's exactly what I was going to say. So I'm going to say it again. But yeah, that's each Google site. I mean, each Google course is on a site, and that's where all your material is. And they have multiple pages. They're full websites. So to get there, I just went back. I went back to my email. You didn't see that because of the screen thing. I clicked on my 9 dots. I clicked on the Sites app, and it opened this page. And here's some sites I've built. So I was in a digital storytelling class, and I said, why don't we have a website to share things on? And the person running it said, great idea. Why don't you build one? And so in about 10 minutes, I built this website. Now, I did have to go and make an image, whatever, to fill it out. But to do it, you have insert, you have pages, and then you have themes up here on the right. So you can really build a website in about 5 minutes. You just pick one of these themes, you drop the name on there, you add an image. As John said, you can add sub pages. It creates a navigation bar automatically. It has a unique URL, which is what makes a website.
Mark, the website, when you create one, let's say I create one, is that website is it going to be like connected to my WISR, or is it just me building a website for anything?
It will live inside of your WISR account, inside of your Google Drive.
Ah.
That's where everything is stored, the text.
So if I want to make a one that's not connected to that, I go to my regular email and do it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool.
But we have no restrictions at WISR. So we've never had any problems.
So I wanted to add, though, that when you create the Google site, your website, as Mark says, it lives in your Google account. So in effect, it becomes part of your Google Drive.
Mm-hmm.
And in your Google Drive, you can give the whole world permission to see it if they have the link. Or you can just say people with a wisr.edu, or you can just say my 3 favorite family members whose emails are 1, 2, 3 are the only ones that can see it. So you can decide who gets to see your website by the way you change the permissions in your Google Drive, whereas Mark says your Google site will live.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, that's all a feature of, because it's inside of the Google Workspace, you control the permissions. So yeah, this website, I believe this is public, but nobody would ever find it except for the 6 people that had the link to it. But here it is, and where's my navigation? So I went to the publish view. What we first saw was the editor's view, or administrator's view. Where's my page navigation? Well, it should be right there. Interesting. I don't see the navigation. That's annoying.
Mark,
Screen share. Anyway, it does have navigation. I've used it many times, and there are a dozen pages. And again, it just took, because we had weekly sessions, I just created as many pages as we had weeks, and then a resource page, and then contact page, and bang. It takes about 10 minutes. Yeah, David.
so could you, when you're complete with sites, would you be so kind as just to give a brief thumbnail of what Google Classroom provides?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm done with sites because it's a whole other presentation about how to build a site, what a site should do, how it should look, all that stuff.
Sorry, Mark, before you move on, it's Audrey. I know my cohort has expressed meeting with you about creating a site as well. So I think we're trying to find dates. Lisa's really interested and the rest of the cohort. So we might have a different seminar on that maybe.
Well, that's the one I was referring to. The date is set now.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in 10 days or something. Yeah. Yeah, and so as John said, you can make them like a group, only people invited. So then there are settings. I don't know why, the navigation bar is not showing up here for some reason. It probably has something to do with Zoom.
Persnickety.
Yeah. So in those settings, you can invite people, you can make it private, so only invitees can see it. You can publish it to the web, make it completely public. And just to reiterate, all this material, any images, any video links, all that stuff lives inside of your drive. So that's the actual, you could say the website, it lives inside your drive. There's a URL. If the public finds this through a search, it's very unlikely anybody would ever find one of these unless you put in keywords and you promoted it and did all the stuff to bring people in, because there's so much stuff on the internet. How would they find this URL? But you can set up a public website if you want to, and it has a unique resource locator. Is that right, David? URL. I think that's what it stands for. It has an address, and when they click on that, they're actually being led into your drive, where the site's application is presenting all this text, images, videos, whatever, presenting it to them as a web page, which is what a website is. Anyway, I think that's too technical. Okay, so somebody asked after this, classrooms. Like I said, Google Classroom is kind of almost a learning management system. It really isn't a full feature like a Canvas or a Moodle, but it's a close approximation. And these are all classes, test classes that I've set up. Let's click on EDV 601, Learning the WISR Way. Oh yeah, one of my favorite photographs. That is the internet right there. Bunch of rusty. Okay.
All right, Jen.
So this was a test class that,
I like that.
Karin Dremel and I set up just to test it out and see how so we took one of John's classes, the sites, and we took all the text from the sites and tried to break it up and then put it into this. If you're really interested, David, I'll add you to this classroom and you can play around in it.
Add me too, please.
All right. And so at the top, see, they've added, there used to be 3 buttons. Now there's 4 buttons. Google is you have to realize that around the globe,
Ellie
there
raised
are
her hand.
engineers working 24 hours a day to improve things for us. So
Will you
every
add me
time
too?
yeah, well, okay, so I'm not going to remember. If everybody would send me a text or an email, I'd appreciate it. I'm happy to do it. Again, moving along. So now there are 4 tabs at the top. So the screen, the screens, that's your home page. If you're taking online courses, you know, it's generally the same. For the user, it's pretty much an LMS. What it lacks is all the back room stuff for admins. But it has, you know, it has calendaring and it does have a grading system, and, you know, it's mostly an LMS, but it really isn't. So I don't want anybody to get confused, like, oh, great, an LMS. Almost, but not quite. Okay, so now they have screen, which I don't remember that term. Class work. Okay, so class work is now, this is your class.
Nice.
And these are all drag and drop, and you create pages. It's like creating forms or creating sites. I mean, it's Google, so it's basically the same thing. You add, you know, here there's a plus. They kept the plus sign every place but email. So here, I click create. It's what do you want to do? An assignment, a quiz assignment, a question, material, reuse, post, topic. And so these are levels of navigation. You have to learn what each one is. And again, like forms, you know, you drag and drop the different features you want. And it does have a grading system, which WISR would never use because we don't do that kind of quiz grade stuff. And then you can see on the left is the navigation. So we broke it into 4 modules, completely arbitrary. You know, again, we didn't want to spend too much time on it. So we just sort of went in and broke it up just so we could see how this would work. And so, you know, module 3, you have to sign, oh yeah, you have to sign in, even though you're in your WISR account. It's weird. Well, no, it's not weird. You're in your WISR account so you can see that there's a class if you've been invited. And then you have to sign into the class. So that's for students. You have to be invited as a student or a faculty actually to get inside. So that's what this is, that second level. So these are very private. Moving on, people. So here's everybody who's been invited to the class. Please just send me a text saying invite me or something. I'll know. And it will be to this class because this is the only one that really has any content at all. The other ones are just, I'll make you all teachers and then you'll figure out how to see the student view. How about that? Not hard, you just have to find the button. Okay, so here's all the people. So if you had a class, and again, you know, it is kind of like a learning management system, you could drag 50 email addresses, drop them in here, bang, you have a class of 50 people. It would automatically send emails to them, tell them they're in the class, you know, all this is built in. And then the 4th button is grades. See, it's not even set up. And I can't imagine anybody at WISR would ever set up a grading system, but if you wanted to, there it is. Okay. Close that. Okay. So anything else, David?
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
one last question. How does this differ from an LMS? Is it just the complexity of the
back end?
The back end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe it tracks views, timestamps, access, you know, all that stuff that LMSs do, all the surveillance part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does, I'm assuming that it would allow a student access to all the sharing features like Google Currents, Google Meet, Google Rooms, right?
Yes.
All those would be available, so a student could see what other students are on the or in the class at the moment they're working on it.
I think so, but if not, they can reach out to them through Meet or chat to see if they're there. Again, you know, this is just a dry run.
It's a mock-up, I get it.
Yeah, but yes, as far as I know, all of those feet, well, here I'm inside of grades, and I still have my 9 dots in the top right corner. And so If I click chat, it does take me outside. So we would have to spend some more time. But I believe that, yes, that you can share videos, you know, especially, again, it's integrated with YouTube. Doesn't mean you have to use
Yeah,
YouTube, but it's
I bet you
integrated.
could set it up so it could integrate all those things onto a,
Yeah,
onto
I
a
believe so
page.
too.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually done it. So that's all. That's
Thank you, Mark.
the caveat. You're welcome. So that's the future, you know, all of a sudden, we just got to this point and then the whole accreditation thing came up. So
Yeah.
that was like three years ago now, right? And so this is on hold, but it's there, it's available, it's part of Google Workspace. So that's Classroom and Sites. Again, applications built into Workspace under the 9 dots. So you can always go to them. And, you know, just to say the obvious, every app under the 9 dots has its own website, web page. And so the 9 dots are shortcuts to get there, but you can also search, you know, Google search, Google Sites. It will take you to that page. And then if you are signed in already, I think it will take you right to your sites through WISR, or you'll have to sign in using your WISR email to get to the WISR sites. And this is all to do with the way it's stored in the cloud. Let's just go with that. So I wanted to conclude with the future. And this is not a Google app, but Google will figure out a way. They'll either buy, well, I think this is a nonprofit. I don't think they can buy it. I think they'll have to knock it off, create, you know, find a company that's duplicated this service, buy that company, and it will be integrated. Because this is the future. This is a free, open source educational tool called Hypothesis, and I promote this in every webinar. What it is again, at the 5th level, the software as a service, the highest level of that first stack that I was talking about. This is on the internet, it's in your browser, and using Hypothesis, and the easy way to get there is if you know how to spell hypothesis, that's the first thing you have to remember how to spell it. And then you put the dot after the first S.
Oh, that's funny.
And you'll go right there. And it'll, up at the top, there's a big button that says view page or add page or whatever it is. And you just drop a URL. So you're reading the New York Times and you really want to say something, but you don't want to say it in New York Times comments. You want to say it someplace where your friends can see it or your WISR family can see it. And so you drop it into Hypothesis, and there's also an add-on to your browser. So one click and you're there. And what it does is it adds a layer. So I guess I should do it this way. It adds a layer to the page you're on. And it works whether you're reading a peer-reviewed article through JSTOR or wherever you're reading an article. It works on magazines, it works on video sites, it works everywhere else, websites, whatever. It adds a layer. And you can use it anonymously. You can just drop a URL, go there, and add comments. And in the comments, you can add images, videos, GIFs, whatever you want to do. So the comments are feature rich, as they say. And then where it really becomes useful is, again, you create a group. Now, again, this is not a Google product. This is not a Google group, but you can create groups. Say your MFT cohort wanted to start looking at stuff on the internet together. Then you have to create a Hypothesis account, which is free.
Right.
And then you would, just like any other group, you add members, and you could make that private. And then you could, like, once a week review an article, and you could add your comments, and everybody in your group could see them, but nobody else could. And you can drop video links and all this other stuff, drop other, do DOI for linking to other articles, all of this stuff. So this is an amazing free service. And it's made for scholars. It's a nonprofit. They, I think, are funded well enough from other nonprofits that they probably will never sell it, never charge for it. I mean, they're educators that created this.
Nice.
Yeah. And so let's finish, and then we'll go to questions. So we have a half hour left. This is good. This, as a presenter, we're doing good here. I could go on and on and on about how cool this is, but I'm just going to show you this, my favorite.
In the beginning, we spoke, turning thoughts into things that others could hear. Then we wrote, sharing our thinking forward in time and outward in all directions. Knowledge began to accelerate, to accumulate. We printed, and in just 60 years, over 20 million copies of books and texts were produced. An explosion that spread across Europe and into the furthest corners of the world. In 1945, a scientist named Vannevar Bush dreamed of an early web and browser. He foresaw trailblazers that would connect the world's information. Almost 50 years later, in 1993, Mark Andreessen and Eric Bina built collaborative annotation into Mosaic, the first graphical web browser, so that every page could be the launchpad for discussion of its content. And then they turned it off. Over the next 20 years, more than 50 projects tried to bring this vision back to life, but they were hindered by early technologies, short-term thinking, a lack of control over spam, and poor design. A small group of dreamers started to ask, why couldn't we do better? They imagined a revolutionary new capability, a new layer over the web, based on open standards, controlled by internet citizens instead of website owners, with a vision of serving all of humanity. They imagined the ability to point inside anything, pages, documents, pictures, video, and even data. The ability to contribute your own thinking anywhere without restriction, even when the comments are disabled. The ability to link into and share ideas and to preserve these links and connections forever. They called it open annotation. Out of this dream, a tiny nonprofit called Hypothesis was formed to bring this vision forward, working with others around the world to build software and services. These dreamers envision a more clear and honest world where comment is free and where peers evaluate each other not on terms established by those in power, but on the merit of their words and deeds. A world that's edgeless, cross-disciplinary, and emergent by design. A world that listens when you have something to say. Join us in making a better world.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
It really is.
Yeah, I'm there.
And if you want to see a demonstration of it, I recommend everybody read How We May Think by Vannevar Bush, the little cartoon character on your screen.
How We Make Think?
How We May Think. It's an Atlantic monthly article from 1946 where he laid out what we're doing right now.
What's his
You
name
left
again?
the Manhattan Project?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Bush? His name is
Bush.
Bush?
Bush, no relation.
Hope not.
Yeah, 1946. He laid
Wow.
out the personal information management system that he wanted. We call it MEMIX. And it's all in that Atlantic monthly article.
Wow.
It's a seminal. I recommend it to all educators, all students.
All right.
Yeah. And drop that URL into Hypothesis, and you will see hundreds of comments stretching back almost a decade. I forget when Hypothesis first, it's one of the first things they use too, obviously. You will see hundreds and hundreds of comments. So it's good on all different levels. It's a great article. It explains how we got here, and it has a lot of Hypothesis comments and annotations.
So literally, Mark, are you saying that the content from, you use the example of the New York Times article, that we can actually use their content in Hypothesis?
Yes.
So we
that's-
can actually show a New York Times article in Hypothesis, even though it's a paid subscription.
Oh, now, Hypothesis doesn't get you behind paywalls. I mean, you know, come on, it's not that good. Anything publicly available, you can drop into Hypothesis.
Hmm.
With the emphasis on publicly available. It has to have a URL. All it needs is a
Hmm.
unique resource locator. And you drop that in Hypothesis, and it opens that web page with a Hypothesis layer on top of it.
Hmm.
But no, it doesn't, you know, that you have to have permission to see the journal article. So if you're going to use it on journal articles.
And
But
how have you seen WISR using this, Mark?
I see it integrated with Google Classroom, and for every resource in the classroom, I see students going to that article or video, whatever the resource is that they're assigned, and I see them having like a weekly chat
Ah,
right on the article. Then they can, and you can print those, you can export all that text, you can print out your comments, you can print out all the comments, and then I see that as fodder for your weekly post back on Currents. There's one example.
makes sense.
And then the reverse, you see something that's really interesting but not assigned, you can drop that onto Currents, especially if you have a group you're in on Currents, like an NFT group or something, or a cohort.
Mhm.
You drop in something and say, hey, I found this article and I left some comments in Hypothesis. And they can pick up that link, drop it in Hypothesis, comment on your comments, and look at their own comments, add other links.
Very interesting. How did you find this hypothesis?
I spent 4 summers at the Digital Humanities Summer Institute at the University of Victoria.
Oh, okay.
So are we open for questions on any of the Google apps or something
Yep.
related to what you talked
I
about?
actually have to go, so yeah, I got to run an errand. Thanks a lot, Mark. I'm looking forward to that other one. I sent you a text.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
And then-
See you guys
Yep.
later.
Anybody have a
Bye.
specific question about something you're struggling with Google, the Drive, the Docs, or how to use something? I've been showing Kelly how to use the Google Drive lately and how to share. I don't know if everyone understands sharing. Do you all understand that from the Google Doc?
I
use
can definitely say this has been very enriching for me. It's a very good experience. It's good seeing everyone here too, by the way. When I first sat down, my mom's with me, so I had to do a few things. But this was great. I really enjoyed and appreciated everything. It's a wealth of knowledge, and it's really going to help me with the responsibilities and things I'm going to be doing in the future.
I didn't, so that was like an overview. One of the key concepts that is, to me, it's the core concept of Google Apps. And it takes some getting used to, and that is the sharing. And so, as I said, in every different app, you can share this with other people, which means you're sending them a link to see what you're seeing. But behind that is this core idea, and this is what Google brought to the marketplace that at the time Office didn't have. Now Office is, they're sort of merging together. There's a lot of things Google didn't do, and they've expanded to cover, the groups and different things that Office does. But the key concept that Google brought is the idea of sharing. And it's based on computer science, of course. They are grounded in computer science, where Microsoft is grounded in text editing. If you want to get right down to it, they came in from that angle. Google came in from this other angle. And so Google, because they give away storage, free apps, they have a problem. and that they have a storage problem. And so they solved that problem by setting up the storage in a way that there's only one copy of anything on their storage. In Microsoft, now Microsoft have changed this now with, of course, their Azure or whatever it's called now, their cloud storage. They've, created the same feature as Google, but Google started with this, and this was the big breakthrough, is when you put a document in your drive. So you open a doc, you take some notes, book you're reading, whatever, take some notes, save it to your drive. Now you have a doc. In the old days, if you did that in Microsoft Word, you would have to attach that to an email and send it to a colleague. And they would open it, and they would make comments or edit, whatever permissions you give. They would do whatever they're going to do, and they'd close it. It'd be saved on their computer, and then they would email it back to you. For those of us that are old enough to have gone through that, you can end up with 30 versions of the same document saved on your computer, and depending on whether you have the naming system or not, really hard to tell which one was the last version, the live version, the real version. In Google, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to handle it, but you still have 30 versions on your computer. If, every time you change the title, that's a new document. And so now you have 30 versions on your computer. That's a storage problem. With a Google Doc, there's one. You share it with people. You have the same permissions. They can edit it or not. They can comment or not. But they're working on the original document. The document. There's only one. They're working on that document. And the way Google saves the changes is they have a history. And you can save different histories. If you want to keep 30 versions, you can do that. But you can see this starts to eat up a lot of storage space. So the concept is there's only one document. As many people as you want can work on it. They can comment, they can edit, do all these different things. And at the end, you could say, this is a much better document 2 weeks ago. We kind of overworked this one. And you just go into history. You find the version you like from 2 weeks ago. And you can either restore it to that, or you can open that that document from 2 weeks ago, and then you name that the final version. There's only one. So it's a computer science approach, but it really helps with sharing, document control, having groups work together and see what's going on. If you've ever tried to edit a Word document amongst 5 people over 2 months, you know that this is a good improvement. And that's the core feature of Google stuff, apps. And so wherever you are in Google, you go to the 3 dots, the hamburger, as it's called, and there's almost always a share button. You click on that, and if you're sharing with somebody in your contacts, you type the first couple of letters of their name. It offers you their email address, and you click share. They get an email that says this document's been shared with you. They can save it to their drive. So now it looks like that document is in their drive. They can put it in any folder they want. They can put it wherever they want in their drive where they can find it. But it's not really a second document. It's really just a link to the one document. And this is the hardest thing to learn because we're so used to having multiple folders, multiple copies, distributed copies. And this whole idea of version control is big in the coding side of computers, because you can have 1,000 people writing a program, and it gets really hard to figure out what the latest update is and to merge all these documents and all that. So that's what this came out of, is we just have one document. You can have 1,000 people contributing to it, and every version, it's all automatic. You don't have to save anything. It's all automatic. Google will timestamp it every time you open it, every time you close it, every time you make a significant change. And that's all discoverable through the history of the document. So that's the sharing part.
Right.
And it is the hardest to get used to. But once you get the concept, then it's just, I'm in this document, I want to share it with somebody, I want their comments, or I want them to edit it, to share it with them. And now both of you can edit it, and it looks like you both have your own copy, and they can download it. But when you download it, that breaks the chain. You've downloaded that version, but then you can upload it again and reintegrate.
And there's more things to know about it, but I've been trying to explain to Kelly and said I had to back off, but I made her a commenter on, so she can do a checklist to audit our Google files and make sure we have everything we need. So now she made comments, and so I'll go and accept her comments or not accept her comments, and I'll change the title because I, as admin in our admin account, I'm the owner. She can't change the title. I could have also given her viewing access so she could only look at the file and not edit, not make a comment or edit, but she could download it. So, and then down at the bottom, and then you could change the owner of a file. I could, yeah, so that's another feature to learn. And then at the bottom, you can say, anyone with this link can look at it, or you could say restricted, only certain people can look at this link. So there's other things to explore with that I use often.
But if you're working on your own, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
If you're working on your own document and you're making changes on your own document, and then you just say save, it just updates what you've done. It changes it automatically, right?
Are you talking about Google Docs?
Am I talking about Google or am I talking about Word? I'm not sure.
Yeah, see, the way you phrase that, you're talking about Word. Because in Google Docs, you don't have to hit save.
Oh.
Yeah, it just keeps all your changes. They're all there.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's all built in. What Marilyn was describing is what's called permissions. And
Called what?
Permissions.
Permissions.
Yeah, when you share something, there's a little drop down that says, do you want this person to be able to edit it?
Mm-hmm.
Or you want them to be able to comment it, or view only? And those are called permissions, and it asks you each time. And so you control your document. You can share it just for people to look at it. And then the part where she was saying you can restrict. So if you send out a link to people, they can forward that link to other people. You have to be aware of that. So if you send it to anybody with the link, that's fine. If you want people to share it, then that's fine. You let them share it. But if you don't, especially over on the MFT side, there's a lot of private information. So you could share it with 2 people and say only those people. So then they have to be signed into their WISR account to view it. If they're not signed into their WISR account, they won't be able to see it. And only they can see it. They can give the link to somebody else, but unless that person has their password, only they can see it. So, and this is, again, this is a computer science idea. It goes all the way back to the beginning, called permissions. Who can read, who can write, who can overwrite. It's all built right into almost into that bottom layer of where I started on the five.
Am I correct? Because I've been looking at some MFT students' documents, and I think they haven't given me permission. So when there are edits, it doesn't edit it. It notes it as a suggested edit, and they have to go back and accept it. Which and for the last person, it was just a lot of spaces and extra spaces or space not good. So it cannot be kind of annoying. So somebody should ordinarily give permission if they want that feedback. But also, it seems to appear that Google Docs doesn't have a spell check.
Oh, it does.
Okay, because I've noticed with some of the people's papers, maybe do they need to activate it because it's been coming across with just simple spelling errors. Does that have to be
You know,
activated?
you can turn it off. I thought it was automatic. Let me,
Okay.
For me, it just underlines when there's a mistake. And if I don't pay attention to that, the mistake will stay there. But if I just hover over that and click, and then I can get the correction. That's what happens. It's been my experience. I haven't run a spell check per se. It's my experience.
Well, this is me receiving other
Right.
people, students' writings.
Right. And maybe the student hasn't paid attention to that feature.
Right. As a student, it'll underline it in, I think, red or blue and let us know if there's a grammatical or if there's a misspelling.
yeah, so let me, let's see. So
They
let me
might just
stop
be ignoring
sharing
it.
Okay, I just happened to open Marilyn's latest document that she shared with me as the next month's announcements. And so under tools, spelling and grammar is the first thing on the tools drop down. Right, so I'm in a doc. I'm at the navigation bar, I go to tools. Spelling and grammar is the first thing, and you can see the drop down. I assume you're seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought I did everything right. Okay, so it says spelling and grammar check, show spelling suggestions, show grammar suggestions, and those are checked. So it's possible that one of your students somehow turned this off, but I believe that it's turned on automatically.
Okay.
But you can turn it off. So have them, again, open the document, go to tools on the navigation bar, and the top one is spelling and grammar. And you can see now, show spelling suggestions had been turned off because I turned it off. Now I'm going to turn it back on. Unfortunately, it doesn't stay there, so you have to go back to make sure. But now it's, so the check mark means it's turned on. So spelling suggestions, grammar suggestions, or you can actually turn both of them on or off at the same time when you're talking.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can add words to, so again, you're inside your account at WISR. So if you think of it as a Venn diagram, you know, there's the whole world, that's the big circle. Then there's a smaller circle, that's Google. And then inside of the Google circle is the Google Drive circle, that's everybody's Google Drive in the whole world. And then inside of that circle is the WISR drive, that's the institutional drive. And then inside of that is every person at WISR has their own little circle. So that's your little piece of drive, but it's nested inside of all these other drives. And when you add words to your dictionary, it just affects your drive. So you have a personal dictionary built in. And that's how you add, you know, names and other things that you type all the time. When you get tired of looking at the underline, you add it to your dictionary, and then it stops underlining it every time you type it. And it will spell check. If you mistype it, then it will spell check it for you.
Could you show me quickly where the permission would be given for somebody to edit?
Sure. So in the top right-hand corner is the big blue share button. See in my screen? Click on share, and it opens this screen.
Okay.
And this is where you add people. So the biggest part of the screen is where you add. So if I start typing,
okay,
right? But at the bottom is the get link. And when you copy link, change, let's see. Yeah, so you have to click on change. It used to be that the settings prompt was there. Now it's hidden under change. So there's the thing. You have to hit the share button, then you have to hit change. And then it brings up this screen. It says, make this link searchable within your organization. Change link settings by clicking the gear icon. So then you click the gear icon.
Okay. I'm in one of the students' portfolio, and her instead of having a share button, it has a little person with a plus, which does the same thing.
Right. Yeah, there's different ways to get to share.
Okay. Got it.
There's another thing a little bit, sorry, there's another thing related to that I want to mention. If you're commenting on a student's document and you do have editing privileges even, you can choose to not edit, but to make suggestions. And Mark, would you show them, it's kind of suggestions is I consider the Google Doc equivalent to track changes in Word. Can you show them how that works, Mark?
Yeah. So here I'm in Docs, and by clicking on the doc, you can see there are two little logos pop up. So there's add comment, which a comment is just like we were talking about with hypothesis. It rides on top of the document. It's a comment. That's it. Then there's suggested edits. That's actually linked. So what you typically do, like a Office document, is you highlight the section that you're referring to. And as soon as you highlight it, you get those little things. And then when you click on the green suggested edits, then you make your suggestion. Where's my, so then I type right in there. So I would overtype what I think should be there. And then that makes it actionable. So a comment is not actionable with a click. A suggestion is actionable. So then they choose to accept it, which inserts your text, or reject it, which leaves the original text. That's your suggested edit.
And I've given him editing status because he requested it for this, but other people might have been given viewing or commenting status.
Yeah, and yeah, where you are there, Mark, I want to say this. I prefer, it's just a personal preference, rather than highlighting stuff, to immediately, once at the top, click where you were, Mark, in the top right corner, suggesting that drop-down menu that's just above where your mouse is right now. But you have the three options: editing, suggesting, and viewing. And if you and for me, but it's personal preference, if I just click suggesting, then I can just type stuff in, and I can not only suggest changes, I can just make a bracket comment like, this is a good point, but you might want to give an example or whatever. So I can, which is kind of like making a comment. It's a personal,
yeah, that's just a comment.
It's just a comment, but I'm just saying, for me, because I'm used to doing track changes, and I'm a kind of a person that's verbal rather than graphic in some ways, I just will type the suggestions throughout, and it's personal preference. And some people, would want to do one thing and some the other.
I like yours, John. I prefer that.
But you have choices. You can do it either way, and it accomplishes the same thing.
Yeah, and actually, Ronald, so I showed you one way to get there. I should have showed you this way. This is the simpler way.
Yeah.
There's the share button, and there's this suggestion. So there's multiple ways to get there. But yeah, I don't think we do that. I don't think anybody does this, but you could have an introductory session with your student and tell them, or discuss with them, I guess is the right way to phrase it, how you will handle these permissions. And that's the technical term, is permissions. And see, does a student want you to just edit their document and send, for them? Or do they want you to make suggestions, or they just want you to make comments? And that's something you can work out with the student if you want to.
Yeah, I was working from a recent experience where there were just a lot of very simple, minor things that was simple for me to clean up and didn't really need for the person to go back and do all these minutia of space edits, So yeah. I was doing it along the way. But yeah, I understand, because there'll be other ways to do it. I'm noticing that actually it looks like I've been giving editing permission on all the MFT students' folders. So that is nice.
Yeah, and again, you can control that. So back to the different layers of storage, the stuff, your personal drive, your faculty drive is inside of the WISR drive. And at the WISR drive level, we've said everybody can select their own permissions. We could make a hard set of one of these permission levels for every document in WISR. We could do that because it's hierarchical, but we don't. So at the faculty level, you can set how you want those documents handled. And then under that hierarchy, depending on your settings, then the student can change settings if you allow it. So just realizing that it's hierarchical. So I would leave the ability to change the settings to the student. If you wanted to, you could say, no, it's, comment only. And that's the way it would be. Yeah, sometime I would like to do a session on text editing. Because built into Google is all the cool stuff for text editing. That even people that do Word documents, there's just no place to learn this stuff unless you go to the Digital Humanities Summer Institute or something like that, where there are scholars of text and text technologists. And, even most people that I've worked with don't even know about find and replace. So that's like the first thing that you need to learn about documents. You can find and replace, if there's one word you don't like, you can change all of them at once. You don't have to go through the document and change each one. Or if you misspelled it, or if your dictionary is out, whatever. But that's just the first step in all the things you can do. There's something called regular expressions, which you can turn on, and you can do some amazing things. You can have 1,000 pages of text, and you can change all of it at once in amazing ways, reformatting, changing phrases, and changing names, and changing words. It really is amazing, and that sort of leads you into publishing. Again, if you were going to have a website and publish a blog, it's all built in, but it's just another level of user. And I'm just trying to get us all up to speed on just using and sharing using Google. That's our first level or first challenge. So we're at 12:06. If anybody has any more questions, I'm happy to stay a few more minutes. But
thanks, Mark. It was great. I have to leave now, but it was really, and I'm going to make sure that the video gets circulated because I think it'll be useful to a lot of people.